Good evening and welcome to the LaRouche Movement's weekly battle report. Today is Wednesday, November 26th. Happy Thanksgiving week to those in the US or elsewhere observing this holiday. And I'm Michelle Aaron, your host. This past week has underscored the importance of the LaRouche Movement. We are putting forward a method for clarity of thought, the laying out of alternative policies. Our intention is not to react to the issue of the day. We focus on the guiding North Star, a new international financial and economic architecture with the development for all humankind. The strategic picture right now is akin to a forest with little fires burning in a bunch of places, each threatening to become much worse. Tonight's report will look at how the LaRouche Movement intervened on several of these fires in the past week. We will first see our EIR seminar on the situation in Venezuela, entitled President Trump, Don't Do It, an alternative American policy for the Caribbean. Next, on the U.S. front, but with global implications, we will see an important intervention by Diane Sare into a chaos operation being run through a group of U.S. representatives. And we will then hear from Kevin Pearl, EIR editor, about what was Jeffrey Epstein really? The two-part article series written by Harley Schlanger to address the real meaning of the Epstein case. Lastly, LaRouche organizers Bruce Todd and Joe Jennings report from on-the-ground field deployments where they went out to talk to the population in the U.S. states of New Jersey and Texas. We begin. One of the fires burning in our strategic forest is the U.S. deployment in the Southern Caribbean. EIR News, the 50-plus year intelligence process of the LaRouche Movement, pulled together last Thursday a highly significant seminar titled Roundtable on Venezuela, President Trump Don't Do It, an alternative American policy for the Caribbean. This was an international panel with speakers from Brazil, Guyana, Venezuela, Mexico, Germany, and the United States. The speakers at the forum demolished the cover story supplied for an intended regime change in Venezuela, that Venezuela's government is a terrorist enterprise threatening the United States through its illegal drug trade. Take this slide from the presentation of Dennis Small at the forum. He's EIR's Ibero-American editor. In the slide, we see that only a tiny fraction of the cocaine brought to the United States comes by water from Venezuela. The speakers also revealed that the actual underlying motivation of the military deployment is a desperate attempt to counter China's collaboration with Ibero-American nations such as Peru in their development of great projects. You see in this slide indicated the recently completed Chancay port, the world's most advanced port at this point. Such projects, and importantly, such thinking of development, will soon integrate South and Central American economies and nations. We go now to two elements from Dennis Small's presentation, both going to the question of what the alternative policy for the region must be. As we begin, Dennis had already just indicated in his point one the potentials of rail development and integration, and we now see his point two on the maritime Silk Road.
Second, look at the blue dotted lines. These are the maritime sea routes of the Silk Road. What needs to be done is not only through the the Panama Canal, which has been expanded. But the Nicaraguan Canal, a sea level canal, is absolutely necessary for expanded trade. This will help build up the entire region along with the rail routes so that the people in these areas like Central America and Mexico can have a life to live, so that they have development, so we end poverty, so that they're not driven into the waiting arms of the drug trade, also run through Wall Street, and have no need to migrate. If you want to stop migration, if you want to stop the drug problem, which are very real problems in the United States, bring industrial development to these regions. And so this maritime sea route is extremely important. We have one route here from São Luís, which is important because that's near the Carajás iron ore mine in Brazil through this region. But also we propose the development of major deep water industrial ports in Ponce, Puerto Rico, where there are already plans for the same, very advantageous for the United States, since Puerto Rico is part of the United States, and this can be connected into the ports in the US. In Mariel, Cuba, proposed by the Cuban government. They have an entire development plan for Cuba. It's in our interest in the United States for that to occur, especially because the transshipment then to ports like New Orleans and others is facilitated. And we would urge that the same be done in the port of Fort Liberté in northern Haiti to save that country from the kind of Gaza process which it has been going on for decades, if not centuries. I end by emphasizing one central point. President Trump, not only don't do that, do this. This policy of the United States working with China, of the United States working with Russia, of the United States working with the ideas presented by Pope Leo XIV in his recent discussion of Nicholas of Cusa, which I will leave to the discussion period, work with Ibero-America to develop these kinds of processes, and the United States will once again return to its true roots of the American Revolution against the British colonial policy, and we will find throughout the world cheering support and cooperation around the world. The only unhappy people will be the Wall Street crowd, the City of London crowd, the people who are actually behind Jeffrey Epstein.
Complete coverage of the roundtable is in this week's EIR magazine, and you may also watch and circulate the video proceedings yourself. We include a link in the video description. On the U.S. domestic front, this week, Diane Sare made an important intervention into the efforts being made to incite chaos within the United States and to make it ungovernable. The American population, already suffering from legitimate complaints that include the incredible unaffordability of daily life, mass illegal deportations, newly threatened wars, and more, are encouraged by our enemies not to fight for something, for a solution to the crisis, but to become agents of chaos. Earlier this week, 6 Democratic representatives released a video urging members of the military to disobey orders. Sare intervened in a series of TikTok statements. She did not make the mistake of falling into a partisan confrontation. Democrat versus Republican, right versus left. The key point made here was a point on the question of leadership. The representatives are the lawmakers. If they want a change in policy, make a law, change the policy. We include a link to both of her statements on the subject in the video description. Here is the second of the series where she went further, showing the lack of credibility of those calling for sedition.
I have an update on the 6 Democrats in the Senate and House who are calling for American service members and intelligence professionals to disobey unconstitutional orders rather than themselves taking responsibility for what they're responsible for, since they are lawmakers in the House and Senate. And first of all, let me name them. Senator Elissa Slotnick, former CIA analyst who served in Iraq during Desert Storm. Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly, who served in Iraq in Desert Storm in the Navy. Maggie Goodlander, who is married to warmonger liar Jake Sullivan. Chrissy Houlihan, who was in the Air Force. She left active duty just before Iraq, or maybe was in it around the first Iraq War, which was also a setup, and then was in the reserves. Jacob Crow of Pennsylvania, who served in the Iraq War, and Chris DeLuzio from Pennsylvania also served in Iraq. Now, these people served in Iraq that was based on lies that everyone knew was a lie. Since Nancy Pelosi told us that she was on the Intelligence Committee, she said, we all knew there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, so why didn't you stop the war? Why did you allow 1 million Iraqis to be killed and over 5,000 American service members, not to mention also probably 5,000 contractors, and create a situation in the United States where we now have 22 soldier suicides per day? So I call out you Democrats, you seditious members of the Senate and House, as a fraud. You are demanding people do what you didn't even have the guts to do. So whether or not President Trump's orders are unconstitutional, and I believe they are, if the president gives an unconstitutional order, then you in the Congress are responsible for doing something about it. And don't urge service members and intelligence professionals to do what you yourself were too gutless, compromised, or corrupt to do.
Now to an intervention by EIR and the LaRouche Movement's Harley Schlanger on the question of the Epstein files. Kevin Pearl from EIR is going to introduce us to the two-part series of articles now available, What Was Jeffrey Epstein Really? These articles demystify the significance of the Epstein files. It is not just a sex scandal. It's bigger than that.
Hi, Kevin Pearl with the LaRouche Organization and Executive Intelligence Review. I just wanted to encourage everyone listening to read the two-part series entitled, What Was Jeffrey Epstein Really? Written by Harley Schlanger. It appears in 2 editions of EIR, first November 14th, the second one dated the 28th, which will be coming out shortly. This may be really the best example of people missing the forest for the trees. All of the coverage of this, even well-intentioned coverage, has basically focused people on the details. Who is in the files? Who's on the list? What was this perversion or that? Whereas it really is the case that the most destructive crimes, maybe not the most disgusting, but the most destructive crimes of Epstein and the people who controlled him are very much out in the open. What was Epstein? He was a technician for a financial elite that was intent upon dismembering productive economies and creating one financial bubble after another for looting. Leveraged buyouts, he was in the center of it along with Milken. Collateralized debt obligations, remember the mortgage blowout? He was one of the instigators of that. Crypto, AI bubble, you name it. But the intention by the financial elites was to dismember the productive economy, consolidate power in the hands of a small network of bankers, some of whom you've heard of, maybe not all of them, but more important than Epstein are the Leslie Wexners, the Leon Blacks, the Andrew Windsor. You may know him as the Andrew formerly known as Prince. But yeah, the former Prince Andrew, who represented BAE, British Aerospace Engineering. He wasn't just a visitor to the island. He was one of the individuals in charge of unleashing an economy based on war, based on looting, rather than production. Anyway, I don't want to go into a lot of details, but that this two-part series of articles, What Was Jeffrey Epstein Really, is must reading.
Thank you, Kevin. We include links in the video description, but as indicated, you can find this in the EIR Weekly News Journal. Now we have 2 field reports. I was personally really excited to see the following report from Bruce Todd, out with a team of organizers in New Jersey earlier this week, organizing the American population. It's wonderful to know that there are real people, members of the LaRouche movement, having real discussions.
Hi, this is Bruce Todd. It's November 25th, and we're out here at a local post office in Hawthorne, New Jersey, trying to talk to people about issues like Glass-Steagall, like the Bering Strait Tunnel, and in general, what most people in the United States, and for that matter in every country, realize must be done for their own self-interest, their nation's self-interest, and all the nations of the world's self-interest. So one of the things I was talking a little bit ago to a gentleman about was the actual power that the American people hold in their hands, the power the Constitution gives them to make sure the nation does the right thing. So we'll be talking here for the day, signing people up and getting the material out so that we can get those things accomplished. Thank you.
Now to Conroe, Texas, whose city council has twice in the past passed initiatives calling on the U.S. Congress to restore Glass-Steagall, the banking standard that, if we restored it today with its necessary corollaries of a bankruptcy reorganization, nationalizing the Federal Reserve, and setting up credit institutions to issue low-interest credit for great development, would prevent an otherwise inevitable collapse of the financial system. Consider over the Thanksgiving holiday going out to canvass like Joe and Bruce are doing for Glass-Steagall.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Joe Jennings with the LaRouche Organization. We're in Conroe, Texas today, which is the county seat of Montgomery County, about 60 miles north of Houston. And we've been talking to all sorts of people today, but Conroe put itself on the map twice, because on 2 occasions we got the mayor and former mayor to sponsor initiatives that passed the city council and went to Congress in support of restoring Glass-Steagall, which is the wall between legitimate banking, which should get deposit insurance, versus the speculative stuff which you cannot possibly save. And this is one and the same with the battle to ensure that the opening of the Jeffrey Epstein files brings to light the trillions of drug money laundering run through these offshore money havens that have come into the U.S. banking system. That stuff has to be cut off, okay? We're not concerned as much about the lurid sex stuff as the larger pervasive corruption of the drug money, okay? So we've had a relatively successful day today here, and if we sign a few more people up, that will help us all have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Joe, Bruce, Kevin, Diane, Dennis, and the many, many other members of the LaRouche movement working tirelessly to reshape the destiny of our nations and mankind. Thank you very much for watching, and we